Hello, everyone. This is Greg Gilpin, and I'm doing a series of interviews with music educators all across the country. And I want to bring ideas and suggestions for remote teaching to teachers who are struggling with ideas at this time. This is a positive platform, and it's simply really to reach out and to be of help to one another. Now, it's a little different today. I'm very excited about my interview today, and I know you're going to love it. Today, I have my a friend of mine who works on Broadway in New York City. Ben Cohn and I have worked together from choral reading sessions to different concerts at Carnegie Hall. I have been a very lucky guy when he's been my accompanist. Ben is currently the music director for the hit production Dear Evan Hansen, and has a long career of successes, including the wildly successful musical Wicked. I know all the kids out there, that go to New York, they've seen it all. Ben has also musical directed many talented stars, and he is also a composer and arranger as well. Hello, Ben. Thanks for joining me today and
Hi, Greg.
sharing a little bit about you with all
Thanks.
the
I'm so happy to be
teachers,
here.
and I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, now why don't you fill in all the blanks and tell a little bit more about who you are and your current work and all of
Sure. Well, you did a pretty good job.
that.
Thanks for having me. So like you said, I'm the music director for Dear Evan Hansen. Of course, we're on hold right now, which we could get into a little bit later. But my regular job before all of this craziness was I conduct the show every night on Broadway. I also supervise the other production. We have two other current productions of Dear Evan Hansen. We have a tour that goes around the country. And then we have a London production that we just opened last fall.
Oh,
And we have as well, I'm sorry, not last fall, last fall. And then just before that, we opened a Toronto company, which was limited, which was for a couple months. So for the two that are still open, the London company and the tour, I also supervise those. So every couple of months I go and check out those companies and sit and watch and at the beginning of those companies, I trained the actors, the musicians, and the music directors who do what I do for Broadway.
okay.
So it's sort of two separate jobs at Dear Evan Hansen. But my regular day-to-day job is conducting the Broadway company, and at Dear Evan Hansen, it's a piano conductor, so I do a lot of playing and nodding and playing and nodding.
Lots of teachers will relate to that.
Exactly. Yes, that's how I learned it in my days in teaching. And that's it. And it's really a full-time gig because we always have new cast members coming in, so we're always rehearsing new people and doing the current show at the same time. We're keeping the understudies
Yeah.
current and all of that. So and we're always auditioning for our other companies and for future Broadway replacements. And so it's sort of a constant process. With Dear Evan Hansen. But I also, like everyone else on Broadway, I consider myself a freelancer. And so I am always working with artists and doing other projects, working on developments of new musicals that are coming in, things we call readings and workshops and all kinds of different things like that. So in addition to Dear Evan Hansen, as much as I can, I do as many outside projects, playing for you at Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, I mean that's what's
Concerts.
amazing, is if you are available and I can ask you, I just say, hey, I got a date, and you're like, oh yeah, I can do it, and everybody, he comes in and plays for him, but the kids love it, and we always get to talk about it a little bit, and so yeah, but Ben is amazing. Well, what did you do? Because I've got lots of Broadway questions, but what did you do before you got your jobs on Broadway? And what is your educational background?
Yeah, so I can give you kind of the quick and dirty version. I grew up in New Jersey. I went to high school in New Jersey. I went to college, undergraduate at Ithaca College up in upstate New York, where I was a music ed major, and I did a combined voice and piano major that they sort of put together for me there. And while I was there, of course, I did a lot of theater as well and played for the shows and as much as I could. And then I actually and this is sort of how we met after I graduated for undergrad, my undergrad at Ithaca. I got a teaching job in New Jersey. I was a music, just a a middle school music teacher, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in a middle school in New Jersey, in Hillsborough, New Jersey, for 2 years, which was great. And while I was there, one of the things that I did, and aside from all the regular duties we do as teachers, is I started doing those choral reading sessions.
Yeah, and the New Jersey music educators.
New Jersey music educators. And that's where we met originally.
Yeah.
Where lots of the things that came through were your pieces, and you'd come and conduct, and it was always really cool. And I really enjoyed those because you just got to not only meet a million amazing music educators and conductors, but also see all these new chorals that were coming out every year, and which was really, really fun. So I did that for those 2 years that I was in New Jersey, but also, so backtracking, after I was done with those 2 years, during my second year teaching, I found out about a program at NYU, the musical theater writing program, which was a composition program focused on musical theater specifically. So I applied, I did an application, I put together my portfolio. I had, I was writing a lot at the time. I had a lot of work that I could put into this portfolio for NYU, and I got into that program. And so after those 2 years of teaching, I ended up moving to New York City for this program, not knowing, if I was going to stay there or come back to teaching at some point. But it was sort of like I better do it now or I'm never going to do it kind of thing. So I did that, and for the first several years of being in New York City, I still went back and did that that choral convention in New Jersey, and so I still got to see you and other amazing people, Sally Albrecht, people like that.
Yes.
So that's when I moved to New York City, and I was in this program for 2 years at NYU, which was great because as many people have found, when you move to New York City with no money and no job, it's hard to get your feet wet, and it's hard to get sort of your foot in the door. But being at NYU gave me a little bit, and having taught for 2 years, I had a regular job, I had some money, a little bit of money to
invest in this
invest in this, right? So I came here and I was able to actually have a little money for a little while, and do this program, which was great. And while I was there, so I was focusing on writing, I was doing a lot of work in the program. But what I found is that in the program and also outside of the program, there are always people looking for pianists everywhere. There are singers who need coaches. There are casting agencies that need pianists to come in and play for all the casting sessions. There are classes everywhere at other schools and individual classes where they have singers come in and sing, and they always need a pianist. So I found people, I started playing a lot for my own program for composers that write music but don't really play. I started playing for them, and then other people in the program, and then it's kind of spread outside of the program. It's like, oh, there's a guy who could play piano and he can sight read, and it's being quick and kind of just having that ability was really helpful to me, just being able to sort of read.
And you met a lot of people that way.
A lot, and that's how it happened. It's just one to the next to the next to the next, and it just so during those 2 years, and then after, for about a year and a half, I was doing every gig under the sun, just playing for whoever I could, doing coachings with actors, playing for this production of this over here and this youth production over here. I was doing some also some teaching artist work, which was really cool at the time. There's these programs that bring arts into schools that can't afford arts programs. So I would do like a 10-week musical theater program here, or a piano class here, or and so that was really cool. And so I just did the equivalent of sort of like, I guess, being a waiter for a pianist. You do any gig you can get. Yeah,
and you got to, and you still made your living with music, which was
right.
Which is great.
Which is really lucky and great. And that's
now you always. I remember one time I asked you to talk to the kids in a choir once, and you mentioned about we were talking about your reputation and your kids being on Facebook and all. Well, they're not now. Whatever they're on now, TikTok or whatever it is. But you made mention that you really never auditioned for anything, that your reputation kind of preceded you. And I wondered if maybe you could share that, your story with that, because I found that very inspiring.
Yeah, I think this this industry, as well as a lot of other industries, are, it's about personal relationships and it's about collaboration. And, in the music industry in New York City, there you have choices. There are a million pianists, there are a million composers, arrangers, actors. And so what it comes down to is that there's not just a hierarchy of you're better than him and she's better than her. And, it's not a vertical hierarchy. It's more like, these are the people who are capable, and it's a huge pool. And of course, every project, there are going to be certain people who are better suited for those projects. But in the end, it comes down to, when I'm hiring a band or I'm hiring a group of singers, or, I'm looking at I'm looking about 50% at skills, and I'm looking 50% at whether this person fits in, is someone I can work with in this environment. And it's someone who I know is going to show up on time and have a great attitude and have a great work ethic and is going to get along with the people around me. And so a lot of the work that you get is based on reputation. It's people say, oh, I want to work with that guy. I know he's going to be on his game. He's going to be easy to work with. He's got a very calming attitude about things. And, that's how we all sort of made our connections. There are things in play. Certainly actors can audition. Nowadays, musicians, we actually at Dear Evan Hansen, we have a system where we have sides. A musician, someone who, I have people come to me all the time and say, I would love to be a part of Dear Evan Hansen. And I say, well, one day we might be looking for people. Here's a packet of music. Learn this packet of music, tape it for me, or you can come meet with me, and I'd love to just hear you play and hear what you do. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to just see if they're in our world. I mean, everyone's good. It's just a matter of whether they're, whether Dear Evan Hansen is up their alley. And we see people all the time. I see someone who maybe they play over at Hamilton, but they're not necessarily right for Dear Evan Hansen, or vice versa. So there is that in place. When I was coming up, we didn't really have stuff like that. There are sometimes you'll say, someone will say, well, I'm looking for a pianist for my show. Would you just come meet with me and just play for me a little bit just so I can get your vibe? We'll have things like that. It's not so much an audition. It's really about, but getting that first connection is really about your relationships.
Yeah.
And someone.
I remember you were talking about once you were in a theater and you had a conversation with a gentleman, you didn't know who he was, and you had this conversation. I hope you remember this story. I remember it. You didn't know who he was. He asked you about the show you were seeing, blah, blah, blah. This went on and on and on, and you parted ways. But his people contacted you later, like a year later, and offered you hey, did you know you were sitting next to whoever it was? I don't know if it's a producer or a money guy or whatever, but he liked his conversation with you. And he thought, you are the person I'd like to be a part of this production, that type of thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one skill that I think we will probably say the exact same thing about what you do. One skill that we get as we do this is being able to identify who those people are quickly. And I have people reach out all the time. Nowadays with social media, and it's easy to find someone and reach out to them. And I think a lot of people coming up, which is a really smart thing to do, they're coming out of school and they write me on Facebook Messenger or wherever. I'm graduating school in the spring, and I love Dear Evan Hansen, or I love Broadway. Do you have any advice? And a lot of times I'll write back, and I'll, and if they seem, I can tell just from an initial message if someone is going to be, someone who has kind of the right attitude or is ready for this. Yeah. And is just, has the right personality. And then sometimes I'll have them even come in and kind of check out backstage, sometimes sit with us in a show. And I can tell in that one session if that person is going to be the right kind of person to work with us. It's quick, it's you figure it out pretty quickly.
Oh, whoops. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Do I still have you?
Are you there?
Oh, I'm getting a lot of, I'm getting. We'll get it fixed.
All right, let's try this. Is that any better?
Yes.
Good.
Maybe. Yeah. We can still hear you.
Is it clear, or should I?
Yeah, that's clear. Yeah,
Great.
That's okay. Cool. Okay, so that leads me. Okay, just a couple of questions, and I want to come back to that.
Mhm.
Is there a teacher of yours that kind of stands out, maybe that made a difference for you?
Yeah, I would say that there are probably two. I'll quickly tell you about two of them. One was my choir teacher in high school, Vivian Quam. She was just, you talk about someone who is well versed in choral music, like you are, like the people you work with, but a kid in high school in New Jersey is not, and she just knew. She just brought us the most amazing music, and I think a lot of us could say this about our choir directors. Not only did she challenge us, she had it, she was a very good musician. She challenged us with amazing music. She brought us to all the festivals and all the, did all state chorus and all that kind of stuff. And she put music in front of me and put me at the piano. And she just really pushed me in that direction of collaborative music, singing, playing, and just, approached, me like, we're doing this, and this is going to be, you know what I mean? And so she was extremely influential to me. And then when I was at Ithaca, our choir director, Lawrence Dobler, was the conductor for the choir, and he was another person who, I think, same thing. I mean, a genius musician, and his knowledge of choral music was unbelievable. But what he also had was, he was just this kind, gentle, just amazing guy who, never a negative thing for anybody, and just this great spirit. Um, and that translated into his conducting style for everything from his, and he was also my conducting teacher in college. And I just learned so much about how to lead a group with, with kindness and calmness and gentleness, and
Yeah.
to conduct, in a very fluid and consistent way. It just so much.
That is exactly who you are. I mean, I've always said that Ben is this gentleman and gentle. And when I watched you conduct, because I've been to your shows, and you are, it's a very gentle approach and nice. I've always said, back to what you were talking about, 50% is playing well with others. It
Mhm.
really is. And I
It
learned
is.
that when I just here in Indy, when I would perform with the Indianapolis Symphony. There were a lot of people, younger people, much younger than me. I used to be young when I started that show, and then I was the old guy. But there would be younger people come in, and they'd be from Broadway. They did shows and they did all kinds of things to offer people. And you know, I knew how to do my job. I could do it well, but I showed up on time. I knew the part. I got along with everybody. I smiled. I did what I was told as from the director. And some of the younger ones would not do that. And guess who got called back every year to work? Me, the
Right.
old guy. So I
Exactly.
truly think 50%. And when I used to travel as a backup singer, and I know that I was told I got hired many times from different people because they were looking for people they knew that they could ride a bus with and wake up in the morning and they still liked each other
That's exactly right.
because you're going to see each other every day and work
Yeah.
every day.
I
You
mean,
got to
think.
have the talent, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think about putting together an orchestra for a show. These people are going to be in a pit together. Dear Evan
Oh,
Hansen's in year 4. I mean, Wicked. When I left Wicked, it had been 10 years. Now they're past 15 years.
yeah.
Those people have been coming to work every night, playing in an orchestra together. One person to poison the bunch, and you've got a really bad situation on your hands.
Yeah, yeah. It's a great lesson. It's a good
Mhm.
lesson. Would you have any advice for a young person that wanted to come to New York, and one really good piece of advice for them, other than save your money?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a question I get a lot, and it's
Yeah.
probably the most important question. Uh, you know, I will say first, and I'm sure that everyone's heard this. Everyone's path is different, and it's important to actually take that in and remember it, because as a young person, you are only seeing other people's paths. You're seeing, if you're an actor, you're seeing the people who have played Elphaba. You're seeing, the people who have played Evet. You're following a certain path, and your path is not going to look like that, and
Mm.
you have to be open to that in the first place. But there are some things you can do. I would say the first step is because of the age we live in, and certainly nowadays, reach out to people and start making those connections, but be very careful about how you're reaching out to people. For example, if someone reaches out to me, let's say a musician, because those are the people who use it. It's usually actors and pianists specifically who reach out. Some people will reach out and write me a message and say, hey, I love what you do. I love your show. I'm really interested in Broadway. I'd love to pick your brain a little bit about it. If you wouldn't mind answering some questions, whatever. And that's all good. Some people reach out and say, I'm graduating college in the spring. And how do I get on the sub list for Dear Evan Hansen?
Or I want your job one day.
I want your job, right? How do I get it? How do I get your job? And what that tells me is that they don't really, they're not ready to sort of put in what it, you don't just get what I say by, I'm saying sub list as if everyone would know what that is, but everyone in a band in a Broadway show has to hire and train their own subs. So anytime they're sick or on vacation, they are responsible for that. So everyone has subs, and it's a great way for players to get in and get work if they don't have their own chair in a Broadway orchestra. So, if someone young is coming up that no one knows and they're asking me how to get on my sub list, it shows me that they don't know the protocol. They haven't talked to anyone yet about it, because anyone would tell them that's not the question. The question is, making those relationships first, because the sub list is way later on. Everyone's sub list is made up of people that they've already had relationships with, because no one's going to bring in a sub that they don't know. It's going to be people that they trust, because it reflects on them. So it's about making those initial relationships. So reach out to people who are doing it. Same thing for actors. If you're an actor, you can reach out to fellow actors. You can reach out to the Actors Equity, which is the union for actors. You can reach out to a music director and say, what do you suggest? So that's the business side of things. Beyond that, I think it's about honing your skills and making sure that you know who you are as an artist. Because, it may be your dream to play Nala in Lion King. Like, that may be your thing that you want to do, but you have to find out what it is as an artist that you really want to be doing, because that probably won't happen.
And to be open to the possibilities, because you may be perfect for something you never imagined, but somebody else saw that in you and you didn't even realize that you could do that. I always say everything you said comes down to, I think the first step is getting experience. You have to go in there knowing, I need experience, whether that's just asking questions and, taking classes and whatever it is. But it is about, people want you to have a little bit of experience in something.
Right. And you have to know the environment that you're going into. Because Broadway, the other thing is, a lot of people think that Broadway is this vast thing, you're coming to the city, how do I get my foot in the door? It's not. It's a small community, and
everybody knows each other. Yeah.
Everyone knows each other, and you're coming into a social environment just like with any other group. If you go to a new, think of it as going to a new school. You don't just walk up to, there's a way to walk up to people and say, can I eat with you at lunch? Or can I join your study group? It's, you don't just get a spot. You have to make those relationships and sow them.
That's fantastic. That's a great takeaway. And I think all the teachers know this and probably say that, but boy, we need to hear it from somebody that's doing it. That's excellent. Now, with all of this going on, because I started these interviews because of remote teaching and teachers having to teach online, what is your current situation?
Same as not everyone else, but same as everyone that's certainly in the arts. We're on hold. None of us are getting paid. None of us know if our shows are going to open again. And
I think that's what people are wondering too. They go, well, they're on salary. They must be getting paid. Yeah.
No one's getting paid. We just had a meeting today about, or a Zoom meeting today about whether we're even going to get, our health insurance goes through September, but none of us will have any health contributions between now and when we open. So we might all not have health insurance come the fall, and won't have health insurance because we're not going to, unless we can convince the producers to sort of pay into our health insurance between now and then. But no, we're not getting paid. Most people are going on unemployment and trying to figure out other ways to make money. Because you go for, we're, as artists, we're a lot of us are used to sort of the ups and downs of sometimes we're paid, sometimes we have work, sometimes we don't. But for those of us who have had shows, I mean, I've had a show consistently since, like '06. I've been in, on a regular show. So you get into a groove, I have a family, I have a mortgage, so you get into a groove, and then one day it stopped, and now we're not getting paid. And so none of us are. So we're all, and all the other freelance stuff I do, I had a whole bunch of other concerts and projects, and none of that is happening, and that's just the way it is.
Exactly. I mean, we've all been canceled, just canceled, postponed, and it affects, and as you listen to the news, that then affects everything in New York and Manhattan, around the Broadway area, because it's restaurants and souvenir stores.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nobody there.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Well, I think we can find, I think at least teachers, it'll let them know that, hey, I'm not alone, and perhaps I'm better off than others in the creative arts, because there's a whole group of people in the publishing world as well. It's at a halt, and we all need each other. And I've always, I've said to you, I'm sure that your audiences, there are nights that probably half of them are students and teachers that are performing at Carnegie Hall or on a tour or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're all in this together. Definitely. What do you anticipate is going to happen? I mean, that's a crystal ball that nobody has, but do you anticipate a change, like in how live shows are done? I mean, is there word on the street there? Do people talk about it in your community?
Yeah, we don't know. I think at the beginning, people are wondering if like we're going to be able to if we're going to be allowed to fill the audience, or if we're going to have to like have only a certain number of people in the house. So that's one thing. Of course, there's, are people going to have to do some kind of testing and, some kind of sterilizing before they walk into the theater? Are we going to, is that going to affect, those are kind of the logistical things.
Right.
How is it going to, in a pit, are we going to be allowed to have people sitting close to each other in that way?
Because everything's little in New York.
Little. I mean, dressing rooms, we're on top of each other. It's not, I go out, like when I visit the tour, for example, the Dear Evan Hansen tour, it's like these vast, beautiful theaters with like a million dressing rooms that are like a mile apart. You never see anyone. But in New York, it's like tiny. You walk into the
stage, just on the side and the back. It's just like
you walk in the stage door and you go up these 2 stairs and you're on the stage, and then you walk up a windy staircase and then all the dressing rooms are right there. And it's tight. So if you're talking about if someone gets sick, everyone gets sick. I do think people are talking about this a lot, and I think it's probably going to happen. The way we consider illness, all of us go to work when we have a cold, and even sometimes worse, because it's just much harder to not go to work. And we don't usually get paid. You can get a sick day, but only a certain amount.
Right.
I wonder if that's going to change here in this country, in our industry. Especially in the performing. If you get sick and everyone else gets sick, you can't do the show. But even just beyond the coronavirus, if it's just going to be getting if we just have to all be more careful about spreading illness and being healthy, and if you have a cold, stay home.
Right. Yeah. It's hard though, and people, lots of different jobs are like that, where I have to go into work. There's no way around it. I always joked at the beginning of this, when people were talking about washing your hands and doing all these things, they said every vocalist, every musician has been practicing this, because they can't afford to get sick.
Right. We already knew this.
I know entertainers that when they have a show, they didn't even get their nails done because they were afraid of getting a cold, with that. So now it's a little bit more serious, but I mean, it's just everything. I think everything will change, but the hope is, if there will be a medicine, which they're working on medicines to help, deal with the symptoms, that's going to help. And I know a vaccine, there'll be a vaccine, and things will be maybe normal again, and that gives us all hope. But it's I just definitely wanted to hear what it was like, for you right now, and that you are like everybody else. It's unknown, and you know,
Everyone's sort of taking to online content, and I'm in the first 2 weeks of this whole thing. I had actor after actor asking me to make them piano tracks so that they could do a song, because people are just craving like performing, and they want to sort of stay relevant, and they want to they want to stay
yeah,
out there. And so I would do these piano tracks for all these different things that they were, people who did that Rosie special, or people who did, and all these different things. And that's maybe that's the future. Fortunately, I have a setup here and I can do it, but I think people who aren't technically savvy at all are getting thrust into it, from learning how to use
are you
Zoom
having to teach? You have a son. You have a husband and son. Your husband's also a New York musician as well.
drummer. Yeah, he's the drummer for Frozen. So they're, of course,
So
also.
there you go. And how old is your son?
He's 7.
That's what I thought. I thought he was
Yeah.
7, 6 or 7, and you're having to teach as well now, right?
Full-time teachers, along with his amazing, his shout out to his teachers, man. They are, he does Zoom things with the class every day, and they have the Google Classroom, and we just,
Okay.
starting at 9 o'clock, we just hit that thing running, and we're teaching.
Well,
It's
yeah,
a challenge.
yeah, you're in the boat with it. I think teachers are going to be highly regarded maybe when this is over.
I mean, if we didn't already think that they were amazing, we sure do now.
Exactly. Well, I wish you all the best, and I hold you in high regards. I appreciate all the musical things you've helped me with when we've had concerts, and I hope those happen again, of course.
Yeah.
And that we
I'm
get
sure
to work
they will.
together again. And I wish you all the best, and we all hope Broadway is back up and running in some fashion, and everybody
Yep.
is back to work.
I hope so. It will happen. Just a matter of when.
It will. It will.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ben. I know teachers will love hearing from you and getting this little piece of the picture there in New York. And be safe and keep your family safe.
Thank you, Greg. You too.
Okay.
Nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.